839 attacks in one day on 53 settlements. That is what Russia did in the Zaporizhia region alone on May 21, 2026. Not across the entire 1,200-kilometer front line. In one region, 839 separate attacks, artillery strikes, drone strikes, missile strikes, ground assaults, concentrated on 53 towns and villages across a single oblast in a single 24-hour period. 2 men were wounded. That is the confirmed casualty count in Zaporizhia for that day. 2 in 839 attacks. That number, the ratio of attacks to casualties, tells you something profound about the nature of this war that raw attack counts alone do not convey. Ukraine's civil defense infrastructure, its air raid systems, its shelter networks, and its population's learned ability to survive under sustained aerial and artillery bombardment have been refined by 4 years of daily practice into something that has no modern parallel. 839 attacks, 2 wounded. That is not luck. That is the product of a society that has been forced to become the most defensively sophisticated civilian population on Earth. And in the middle of 839 attacks, in the middle of a war that produces this kind of number as a routine daily report, not an exceptional event, Zelensky made a move that should define the international community's understanding of where this conflict is heading. He authorized Ukraine's military intelligence to confirm the capture of Stepnohirsk in Zaporizhia Oblast, releasing footage of the Artan Special Operations Unit in the town. He disclosed internal Russian government documents revealing Russia's self-assessed fiscal deterioration. He reinforced Ukraine's northern border with Belarus. And he accepted a briefing from Estonia's intelligence chief confirming that time is not on Putin's side, and immediately directed his forces to act on that assessment with maximum operational urgency. Tonight we examine the full military picture behind 839 attacks in one day. We examine what Russia is trying to achieve with this level of sustained pressure on the Zaporizhia region specifically. We examine Ukraine's defensive capability, how a society under this kind of bombardment continues to function, to fight, and to advance. And we examine what Zelensky's most dangerous move yet actually is, because the answer is not what you might expect from a leader whose country is absorbing 839 attacks in a day. The answer is that he is advancing, simultaneously in multiple directions, on multiple fronts, against an adversary that is generating this volume of attacks because it is running out of the conventional military tools that actually change facts on the ground. Let us start with the 839 attacks and what they actually represent militarily. Russia has been increasing the volume of its attacks throughout this war, as its capacity for the kind of massed, armored breakthrough that traditional military doctrine calls the decisive operation has been progressively degraded. In the early months of the invasion, Russia attempted to win through conventional combined arms maneuver. Tanks, infantry, artillery, and air power coordinated to achieve rapid breakthrough and encirclement. That strategy failed at Kyiv. It failed around Kharkiv. It failed at the scale required to achieve Russia's initial objectives. What replaced it was attritional warfare, grinding, high-casualty advance by infantry assault, supported by artillery barrages and drone strikes, at a pace measured in hundreds of meters per day, rather than the kilometers per day that Russian military planners originally envisioned. This approach has produced some territorial gains in Donetsk over the past 2 years, but at a cost, in men, in equipment, and in the pace of advance, that no rational military planner would have accepted as adequate return on the investment before the war began. The 839 attacks in Zaporizhia on May 21st are part of this attritional approach. Russia is not attempting to achieve a decisive breakthrough in Zaporizhia with this volume of fire. It is attempting to exhaust Ukrainian defenders, to destroy Ukrainian defensive fortifications, to degrade Ukrainian air defense assets, and to prevent Ukraine from concentrating forces for offensive operations in the south, while Russia maintains pressure in the east. It is, in military terms, shaping activity rather than decisive activity. But here is what makes those 839 attacks strategically significant in a way that the raw number obscures. Each of those attacks requires ammunition. Ammunition that must be manufactured, transported, stored, and delivered to firing positions. The supply chain that sustains 839 attacks in a single region in a single day is an enormous logistical enterprise that runs from Russian weapons factories through a network of depots, rail lines, and forward storage points to the frontline artillery positions and drone launch sites that generate those attacks. And Ukraine is systematically destroying that supply chain. The Moscow drone strikes targeted fuel pumping stations that supply the military logistics network. The Orenburg gas strikes targeted energy infrastructure that powers Russian military-industrial production. Ukrainian long-range drones have hit ammunition depots, rail infrastructure, and logistics hubs across Russian territory, in operations that predate and complement the frontline attacks. Every Russian ammunition depot struck deep in Russia's rear is a constraint on the capacity of Russian forces to sustain 839 attacks per day in Zaporizhia. Not immediately, but over weeks and months of cumulative degradation. This is why Zelensky's most dangerous move is not the counterattack you see on a map. It is the deep strike campaign that degrades Russia's ability to generate the attacks you count in a daily report. The 1,500-kilometer strike on Orenburg's gas fields. The 500-drone assault on Moscow's military-industrial infrastructure. The domestic glide bomb program that gives Ukraine a new precision-guided weapon for striking Russian fortifications and command posts behind the front line. The systematic targeting of Russian ammunition production through strikes on facilities that supply the frontline units conducting those 839 daily attacks. Zelensky is not responding to 839 attacks by trying to shoot them all down. He is responding by trying to ensure that within weeks or months, the adversary generating those attacks cannot sustain that volume because its supply chain has been degraded, its fuel infrastructure has been struck, its military electronics production has been disrupted, and its manpower pipeline cannot replace the soldiers being lost at a rate of 910 per day. And simultaneously, while absorbing 839 attacks in Zaporizhia, Ukraine is advancing in Zaporizhia. Stepnohirsk has been captured. Ukrainian forces have gained a net 29 square miles in the past week and 69 square miles in the past 4 weeks. The same region where Russia is launching 839 attacks in a single day is a region where Ukraine is taking ground. This is the paradox of the current phase of the war that most Western analysis misses. The attack count and the territorial numbers seem contradictory. How can Ukraine be advancing in a region where it is absorbing nearly 1,000 attacks per day? The answer is that the attacks and the advances are happening in different parts of the same region, and that the net territorial balance is moving in Ukraine's favor, despite the volume of Russian fire, because Russia's manpower, which must advance on foot to hold territory, is being depleted faster than it can be replaced. 839 attacks in one day, 2 wounded in Zaporizhia, and Zelensky is advancing. That is not a coincidence. That is the product of 4 years of building the defensive infrastructure, the civil defense systems, the drone warfare capabilities, and the strategic patience required to absorb this level of punishment while simultaneously degrading the adversary's capacity to sustain it. Zelensky's most dangerous move is not any single operation. It is the combination, the simultaneous maintenance of active defense on the front line, deep strike operations against Russian military-industrial infrastructure, domestic weapons development that reduces dependency on foreign supply chains, and the political and information warfare operations that maintain Western support and undercut Russian diplomatic performance. Russia launched 839 attacks on 53 settlements in Zaporizhia on May 21, 2026. And Zelensky just made his most dangerous move yet, not by shooting them down, by ensuring that the adversary generating those attacks is running out of the soldiers, the fuel, the ammunition, and the industrial capacity to sustain them. That is what the most dangerous move looks like when you understand what war at this scale is actually about. There is one more dimension of the 839 attack story that deserves attention, the human dimension. Because behind every one of those 839 attacks, There is a Ukrainian family that spent part of May 21st in a shelter. A child whose school day was interrupted by an air raid siren. A farmer who had to abandon a field mid-harvest because artillery rounds began falling nearby. A hospital that had to move patients from upper floors to basement corridors while its generators ran on fuel reserves that are never quite sufficient. 2 men were wounded in Zaporizhia that day. That number is a testament to Ukraine's civil defense. But the psychological cost of living under 839 attacks in a single day, of being a society in which that number represents a routine daily report rather than an extraordinary event, is not captured in casualty statistics. It is the accumulated weight of 4 years of sirens, of nights in shelters, of the constant background awareness that every trip to the market, every school run, every morning commute occurs in an environment where death can arrive without warning from above. Zelensky carries this weight with him into every international meeting, every diplomatic conversation, every speech before a foreign legislature. The 839 attacks in Zaporizhia on May 21st are not an abstraction for him. They are the operational reality within which Ukraine's military is fighting, within which Ukraine's society is functioning, and within which Ukraine's people are trying to maintain the kind of normal life that makes the will to continue fighting sustainable. And still he advances, still he strikes Moscow, still he announces glide bombs and reveals Russian classified documents and reinforces the Belarus border. Still he tells NATO allies in Brussels that Russia is losing more soldiers than it can recruit, and that Ukraine's active defense tactics are wearing down the enemy. 839 attacks in one day, and Zelensky just made his most dangerous move yet. Not by trying to absorb the attacks and survive, by building the capabilities that will ensure Russia cannot sustain this volume of attack indefinitely, economically, militarily, or politically. That is what the most dangerous move in this war actually looks like.